So I've been going down this very deep rabbit hole of creating your own custom shell, and there are a few additions I now have to my custom shell, like autocomplete. So for example, if you're typing commands like git, you have autocomplete, and we'll press space, we have the different options that are associated with git, and I can select checkout and autocomplete. And what I like the most is that I can easily select what branch I want to check out into from the list of branches that I have in the current repository. So check out into main, and we have this. Now this autocomplete was not done by me. I'm currently using the Python Prompt Toolkit, which provides autocomplete and as well as other features for an interactive command line. I'll touch a bit on how I used this in my shell, but building from last video, if you haven't checked out my last video yet, please do. I gave a basic introduction to how shells work, and I used Python. You can use any language that can take input from a user on a command line interface. And basically all I do here is get an input from the user. I break down the input to know what the command is and what the arguments are. And then I can check if that command is in a command that I already have configured in my shell, which is this. I have a couple of commands which call different functions. If that's the case, then I actually run that command with the arguments, get the result, print it, or throw errors. But if I don't have that command, then I just pass that command or the whole thing that the user typed. I pass it to the system, and the system would use the default shell to run that command. But there are a lot of limitations with what I have here, especially using this input function to take inputs from user, and I'll explain. So I'm going to copy everything here and go to main.py. This is where my shell runs from. And if I close this tab and open my shell again, so one of the commands I have in my shell is sysinfo, and here I can pass sysinfo, and I have this. It works fine. Now, as this is, it looks like it's good, but it's not, because when you're working with a shell, there is a lot more things you have to take care of, because there are different user inputs that your shell can receive. So if I'm typing hello, these are basic characters. But if I should click the left arrow, or the right arrow, or the up arrow, or the down arrow, you can see that my shell doesn't know what to do with this information. The terminal in most cases doesn't know what to do with that text, so it just passes it off to the shell, and the shell has to figure out what to do with that text, like moving the cursor from one point to another, or doing different things on the screen. And that is something that my shell is currently not doing. My shell just gets everything as an input, and this is where things become more complicated, because you have to handle all of those key combinations that can come from the user. And in my research, or in this rabbit hole, I got to learn about readcar. Readcar is a package that I had to install, and it basically allows you to read individual characters. So instead of reading everything as a string, as we currently do with input, with readcar, you can actually read every character and do something with that information. And there are a couple of things I'm not going to explain here, because I want to show you Prompt Toolkit. But with readcar, what you notice here is that we read a particular character, then we check if that character is a new line, then we break from the loop. So now if I should copy everything in this readcar, put in main.py, then I close this tab and open a new tab. Now if I press enter, which is going to enter, or for which the character is going to be a new line, it just breaks the loop and asks the user for input again. And there are a couple of things I do here. What I'm doing here is basically a backspace. So if the user enters a backspace, I'm doing a few things. This took me like 2 to 3 hours to actually get right, and my shell is still not perfect. It's very nonsense, and I'll show you what I mean. By the way, before we come here, you can see I have a line variable where I get the particular text that the user enters on a line. Now, when you're handling every character, it is now important that you have to build everything yourself. Like, you have to build what the line looks like. Maybe the user is trying to enter git status or cat something. You have to build everything together. It starts from an empty string. Then here we have the position, which starts from 0. And this is where I basically track the cursor to move the cursor from left to right. So here, when we have a backspace, I check if the position of the cursor is at the beginning. If it is at the beginning, then I don't do anything. But if it is not at the beginning, which means the position is 1 or 2 or something else, the first thing I do is to reduce the position. Then I get the current line without that particular character that the user is trying to backspace, then this is a way of performing a backspace on the terminal. Write here is basically calling the standard output.write method. This first escape B moves the cursor backwards. So we move the cursor backwards, we have a space. That space would overwrite the current character that you have just after the cursor, and then we move the cursor back again. Let me show you how this works. Let's just write a simple move the cursor backwards. So now if I open my shell again, let's say we type this. Now if I press backspace, see it just moves the cursor backwards. If I press it again, forget that I pressed that, but if I press it again, it just moves the cursor backwards. But now what we want to do is when we move it backwards, we want to add a space that would overwrite the next character after the cursor. So now that we have that space, if I run this again, when we do backspace, the cursor goes to the left, and then we have a space added, and because that space is added, the cursor moves to the right again, and this is where we need to do another go back to the left. Let's try that. Now when I press back, it actually goes to the left, adds the space, and goes back to the left again. I think you can already begin to see where things get complicated. I don't want to bore you with all these details, but basically what I'm trying to show you here is that when you begin to handle all of this user input yourself, it can become very complicated. I have this for backspace. I have this for moving up, down, left, and right. Let me clean this and show you what happens on the terminal. If I try to go up, and I don't know actually why this even works this way. If I try to go up and down, look, the arrow actually allows me to go left, right, up, down, and I can write things anywhere. This doesn't make sense. So you can see it gets complicated because now you have to handle every character. Well, not every character, but at least the special characters that should do something. You want to handle that, and that's what I'm doing here. This line is basically saying if you're trying to go up or down, don't do anything there. And if you're trying to go left, we do this. If you're trying to go right, we do this. So now if we should try that, now I cannot go left. If I type this, I can go left up until this point and I cannot go any further. I can go right up until this point and I cannot go any further, and my backspace still works. But look, if I come to the beginning here and I type something, now I begin to have issues that I don't understand. And look, now I can go left. So it's a whole mess. This took me hours to even get to this point, but you get the idea. You're handling characters yourself. It involves a lot of carefulness in how you move the cursor, how you add text, and how you do all of those things. And this is where the Prompt Toolkit comes in, because the Prompt Toolkit already takes care of a lot of that. It has syntax highlighting, it has multi-line input editing, advanced code completion, it has all of those things. And now I don't have to worry about the user input. I can just worry about the extra features that I actually need for my shell. And this is where I have all of this. I'm going to copy this and paste it here in main.py. Now, just by having this, if I go back here, I already have the cursor and everything handled. The Prompt Toolkit already takes care of that for me. So now I can focus on the things that actually matter. Now, there are several features you can use here in the Prompt Toolkit. You can ask for input, you can format text, ask for choice, add dialogues, progress bars, a lot of this. Probably I'll look at this in another video. Let me know if that's something you'll be interested in. But what I want to show you in this video is the autocomplete. So from the Prompt Toolkit, you have the word completer you can use for word complete. You also have nested completer, which you can use for even more complex completions. Basically, you have this completer and you can create different completers. You can have your basic word completer or a nested completer or a dynamic completer. For this video, I'll just show you a nested completer. And for your completer list, you basically have an object which you use to define your completer. So if I have my completer list here, I can say for a command Deeecode, when the user types Deeecode, the next things I want you to suggest is the name, the age. And for the name, if I do none, then it means that when you get to name, there is not going to be an extra autocomplete or an extra list to pick from. After age, I can go as far again as saying more than 30, none. So stop here with the auto completion. Less than 30, none. I can build this as much as I want, and after Deeecode here, I can add another one that says subscribe, and here I can have none. I can create the completer here by saying completer nested completer from nested directory completer list, and here I can pass it to prompt. Prompt I get here from the prompt toolkit, and you pass the prompt string and then you can pass the completer. So if I should open this now, if I should just press spacebar or tab, or if I start typing, I can already see some of these suggestions from here. So we have Deeecode, we have subscribe. Now if you go down to subscribe, well, it doesn't do anything. It tries to run the command because I try to run it here, but subscribe doesn't suggest anything further. But if we should go to Deeecode and I press space, I see other options like name and age. If I should go age and I press space, I see other options like more than 30 or less than 30. You can build your completer structure in any way that you want. And that is what I took advantage of here. First, I get the non-hidden files that are in the current directory where I'm at in the shell. I can pass it here in my completer list. So when you start typing cd, it should show you some of those files as suggestions. And the other command I have is exit. So if I type cd, now it gives me all of the files or directories that I currently have in the current directory, and I can select any of them and try to cd into it. Actually, I should only be showing the directories. I shouldn't be showing the files because you cannot cd into a file. So I can go further to filter this, but you get the idea. I'm just listing out things here for the word completer, pass it to cd, and I can select from here. So for example, I can cd into this. But let's go back. Then there is obviously exit, which doesn't do anything. Okay, now that I have this, there's also something I added. In my previous video, I showed that I don't want to have to cd before going to a directory. I want to just be able to type that directory directly. Wow. Directly. So what I do is for all of the files in hidden files, I add it to the completer list and I have none. So basically here we're going to have dar1 none, dar2 none. So now if I close this and run this again, now I don't even have to cd. If I just press space, I can see my cd and my exit, which are the two commands, but I can also see directories, and if I just click on any directory, I can cd into it already. That's what I added there, but I even took it a step further to add git. So here if we go to git completer, git completer.py, here I build my git completion object. First I get the current branch. I don't even think I used the current branch for anything. I had some ideas for it, but I didn't follow through. But here I get all of the branches that are in the current directory. By the way, I first check if that directory is a Git repository. If it is not, I return none. And if it is, I come here, I get all of the branches in that repository. And then here I build my completion dictionary where I have checkout and I have word completer for branches, merge, word completer for branches, add, commit, and so on. Now in my main.py, I now check git comp equals get git completer, which I imported up here. So we check if the git comp is not none, then that means it's actually a Git repository. So on my completer list, I have git and I have the object returned from the git comp. So basically it's going to be git, and then we have an object which will now have branch, checkout, and the rest. And now if I should go back here, if I just do a space, I have all of the options I have. And git, where is git? Oh, git is going to be at the end because I put it last. So we have git, we have checkout, and I can check out into a particular branch like main. I think I'm already on the main branch. And if I should add a new branch by doing git branch something, now I have a new branch. If I try to do git checkout again, you see I now have something here and I can easily pick from it and check out into that branch. Now from this you can see that it opens a whole world, or like in my case, it opens a very deep rabbit hole of the different things that you can do in your custom shell to serve your own use case. Maybe it's something you also want to make publicly available for others. You can do that, but just even for your own efficient development experience. You can always come to this documentation to see what's possible. For example, you can ask for a choice. Progress bars, for example, if you're building something that actually requires a progress bar, you can do something like this in your terminal. You've probably seen something like this if you're trying to install a package either with pip or npm or whatever it is that you use. You can use this toolkit, and I'm sure there are different toolkits out there that you can use. This is the one I discovered, and more about styling. You can do more interesting things with styling, adding background color, I think even adding borders, and yeah, that's my journey so far in my own shell. There are still more things I can do in my shell which I would be spending time on. For example, I cannot go up to see the previous command I ran. On the left here where we have ZSH, I can go up to see the commands that I have run before, but here if I go up, it doesn't do anything. My next step will be to filter all of this to make sure that it's only showing folders and not files. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with others, and subscribe if you want to join me on this custom shell journey or maybe other videos that I make on my channel.